everyone, this is the Commonwealth realm, and welcome to a completely new news and discussion series, The State of the Realm. And with me I have a great guest, Zeltik, and he just recently uploaded a very intriguing and interesting Zelda Wii U video about what this game could learn and should implement from the original Legend of Zelda, a return to the roots of the series. So Zeltik, what are your thoughts about the Zelda Wii U Delay, and what kind of possibilities does this delay create?
I've already made a video on my channel discussing my thoughts on the delay, and that was this video was uploaded quite shortly after the news dropped, sort of an hour or something after the post on Miiverse appeared from Aonuma. So obviously, since that video, I've had, what has it been, 2 weeks or something since the announcement to reflect on the delay and sort of gather my thoughts more than I had done an hour or so after the announcement. And basically where I stand at the moment, I'm along the lines of I'm supportive of the delay, because at the moment, the gaming market at the moment, we are seeing a lot of games that are coming out probably before they should and are seeming rushed. And for a game that's as large and ambitious as Zelda Wii U and is in a series known for its intricacy and detail, like most Zelda games, well, if not all Zelda games, are very detailed, complete and inventive experiences. So for the Zelda team to create a game to the quality of a Zelda game on the scale of Zelda Wii U, I feel that they should take as much time as possible so it doesn't seem rushed in any way. Yeah,
I completely agree with you, and we actually have a rather lengthy history in the Zelda franchise with delays which have actually in the end benefited the series, of the exception being Twilight Princess, which created such a level of hypes that it was almost impossible to live up to them. But in the case of both Ocarina of Time and some of the other games that were delayed, the wait was rewarded in the end. And the question is if this will be the case Zelda Wii U, as Aonuma stated in the developer video where he had to present the necessity for a delay for the game. He said that I feel strongly that our focus should be to bring all these ideas to life in a way that will make Zelda on Wii U the best game it can possibly be. Our priority is to make the ultimate and most complete Zelda game. And this creates a lot of expectations, I would say, since I've been doing myself an extensive Zelda Wii U series about what they could include in those different provinces, since, to be honest, I must say that most of footage we have got so far has been rather limited. We got in the E3 reveal, we got short footage of Hyrule Field with the timeshift monster chasing Link, and probable return of the timeshift stones, or at least timeshift energy. While during the gameplay demonstration, the most interesting thing was the game map, since it tells everything about what is present in the game currently. With the delay, I might believe that they could expand the overworld even further compared to what we have seen so far. So I don't know what your thoughts are about a possible extension or improvements in general for Zelda Wii U as a result of this delay.
It's interesting when looking at what we've seen so far of Zelda Wii U and comparing it to the other early looks we've had at past Zelda games, because history shows us that Zelda games have changed from what they've been like when they've been first announced to the final product. They've changed a lot of the time quite drastically, such as The Legend of Zelda, the Wind Waker, had a really sort of cartoony style of initial trailer. You had Toon Link running away from a group of moblins and then defeating them in a very Looney Tunes style way by jumping and hanging onto a chandelier, and they all sort of ran out into the open air, saw there was no ground, did that thing where they like run in the air for a bit and then fall. And then the actual game, while still cartoony, wasn't like this, wasn't like the trailer, and I think part of the reason for that was the reaction from fans that the trailer got. But then in the case of Ocarina of Time as well, the initial game, while impressive for its time because of the 3D environment that Ocarina of Time is set in, it is drastically different to the final product. There are screenshots of an early demo fight scene between Link and Stalfos. And then when compared to the actual Stalfos and the fight with the Stalfos in Ocarina of Time, such as the mini-boss of the Forest Temple, the final product is a lot better. It is a lot better looking and runs a lot smoother than what we saw initially from Ocarina of Time. So I'm very hopeful that what we see of Zelda Wii U in the future, when we finally do see something of Zelda Wii U, will be more polished than what we've seen so far, because what we've seen so far has come under scrutiny a little bit, because it is obviously an unfinished game, and it does need to be understood that what we've seen so far isn't the final product, and the final product could be vastly different.
Yeah, I would agree, since especially the gameplay demonstration, it felt rather empty, rather deserted compared to what I would expect from an open-world seamless Zelda game, since they traveled a rather vast distance from the beginning of the demo to the ending, which was close to the area of Lake Hylia and presumed dungeon area. So the question is whether we will see a change like the one we saw in Twilight Princess, where you had a graphical overhaul, a change in colors. That you might say that Twilight Princess was dark, but the demo was even darker in terms of visuals. The one thing that makes me a little bit worried about this delay is what happened with Twilight Princess after it was delayed. The open and seamless area of the forest was cut out completely and substituted with the, don't know if I even could call it a maze type of forest, since Farmwoods was basically just a small area where you just ride through with Epona and nothing else. So the question is whether the art style, which I believe is mostly inspired from Wind Waker, but in a more realistic tone, survived the change, and the game will most likely be launched for the Wii U. But at the same time, we know that Nintendo is working on their next console, the codename NX, which could be a place where this game could as well be launched, but we know that the NX won't be coming out until 2017. But when it comes to the specific improvements they could do, I believe that it's first and foremost adding more content to the game. From what we have seen, I think one of the things that I immediately thought of is this place is empty. It needs more content. It needs more things to do, since you have been traveling quite a long distance without meeting any NPC, and you had to go all the way to the area in the proximity of the dungeon area to at all find enemies. So I'm a little bit afraid that what we have been shown so far has been basically demos, and that we could get a rather extensive overhaul, but I believe that overhaul will be for the better in the end.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you've seen, or well, you probably have, but from the first looks we got at Ocarina of Time and Wind Waker, along with Twilight Princess, Ocarina and Wind Waker both had extensive forest areas that were sort of Lost Woods inspired. And then these both got changed. Wind Waker presumably got scrapped unless it was sort of used as part of the Forbidden Woods or something, or perhaps the Outset Island Woods. But then the Ocarina originally the woods looked like a big sprawling forest, but then they got changed into what we see in Ocarina of Time, which is a maze made of very square segments and connected by big hollow tree trunks. I'm not saying that sort of thing will happen with Zelda Wii U, because with the Wii U's power, we don't expect them to have to break up areas of the world like that. It's just an interesting observation that that 3 of these Zelda games have all had big forest areas shown off and then scrapped.
I'd like to refer the final line, which was indeed really interesting from Anuma's side, and that was that as we have worked to turn these possibilities into reality, new ideas have continued to spring forth. And it now feels like we have the potential to create something that exceeds my own expectations. Those are some really great words from Anuma, and it makes me believe that what we have seen so far, at least in terms of the size of the overworld, the vastness of the Hyrule in the next-gen Hyrule, which we could call this, is here to stay. The question is what will be added to the game. And we have already referred to the graphical overhaul, probably a more extensive overworld and some more content. But the question is more related to, let's say, NPCs, accessibility, and so on. Is this the things that takes time to implement? Since the largest overworld that was not based basically on the sea, that was Twilight Princess so far. And that game had its gaps, its holes, and the castle town itself wasn't as accessible as prior hubs or towns in the Zelda franchise.
Yeah, along the lines of NPCs, a lot of people have been saying that Zelda Wii U will most likely take inspiration and take some elements from games that it's been developed alongside. And notable games that it have been developed alongside Zelda Wii U are the Wind Waker HD, Link Between Worlds, and Majora's Mask. And you can see some sort of similarities, such as we've got a vast open world which you're free to explore in both Zelda Wii U and Wind Waker. They're both very open worlds. Well, Wind Waker's open world from a certain point, and Zelda Wii U looks like that's sort of the main focus of it. A Link Between Worlds is very non-linear. They focused on that a lot, and that's something that's been stressed by Aonuma right from the very start when they very first announced that they were working on a Wii U Zelda title. And then looking at Majora's Mask, one of the main features of it is the sort of dynamic NPCs, and they're sort of rich with character, more so than NPCs in a lot of other Zelda games. And this is something I really, really hope that they do borrow or carry on from Majora's Mask into Zelda Wii U.
I agree completely, and other open world games should serve as inspiration, and I think this is the right moment to actually get over to Witcher 3, which just a new official gameplay trailer, which really impressed me. In fact, I think we will show a section of the gameplay trailer right now.
At CD Projekt Red, it has always been our goal to take you on adventures both legendary and grounded in reality. To tell you stories where breathtaking magic, fantastic creatures, and age-old prophecies are interwoven with religious fanaticism, war crimes, even racism.
See her ears, she-elf.
It's this very vision that we've realized in our most ambitious project to date. The open world of The Witcher Wild Hunt.
Welcome, traveler. Drink with me, you cocksucker.
The Northern Realms span a vast continent, filled with remote outposts, quaint villages, and bustling cities of astonishing wealth. Varied landscapes will see you riding into mountain valleys, sailing the open seas, and exploring forgotten temples. However, this land is brimming with conflict. Racial hatred often erupts into violence, and war between the mighty has driven people from their homes. But one plague runs rampant: monsters. They haunt the countryside, breed in city sewers, and rule the wilderness, feasting on merchant caravans. That's where you come in.
Ah, the Witcher. Should have expected as much.
Might think you're a freak, but everyone can use the help of a professional.
Blood are glowing. Vampire.
Is it 1358 yet?
No.
Then fuck off.
We put a lot of effort into seamlessly blending gameplay with the surrounding environment. Monster behavior and tactics change depending on the time of day or terrain. It's these shifting circumstances that will often determine if you are hunter or prey. Clear an area of monsters, and you'll witness people settling in, transforming dangerous areas into sprawling hubs where you can buy and sell gear. Hundreds of armor and weapon upgrades await you, but it's the way you fight that makes all the difference. Invest in sword skills to develop special moves. Level up your alchemy skills and gather rare herbs to create potions and bombs. Or master the arcana of magic signs and annihilate your foes with a twist of your fingers. Whoever you are, in the Northern Realms you'll find what you're looking for. Whether it's horse racing, getting drunk, following your heart, or just satisfying your passion. Playing cards, brawling, discovering places of power, hunting treasure, or joining in ancient rituals. Forge your own adventure in the most realistic fantasy of our times. Welcome to The Witcher Wild Hunt.
Alright then, that was the official gameplay trailer for CD Projekt's Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. which is due to release in just a month's time from now, on May 19th, and in many ways will be the holdover title until Zelda Wii U, since it is both a third-person adventure game and it is probably a little bit of a taste of what we can expect in Zelda Wii U. It is also seamless, and it has all of the things that we would probably want to see included in Zelda Wii U, such as dynamic NPCs, a huge medieval town or city, horseback combat, huge monsters and boss fights, leveling and upgrade systems in terms of sword techniques, alchemy, magic, over 200 hours of confirmed gameplay, 50 hours just the story, and a lot of other things. So, what are your thoughts about the new gameplay trailer, Zeltik?
Well, it looks incredibly impressive, to say the least. It's one of the first next-gen titles I've seen that, in my opinion, truly makes use of the increased power of the next-gen systems like the PS4 and the Xbox One. And the way it uses this power, it appears to be basically putting a lot of work and a lot of emphasis on just creating a world that you can literally lose yourself in. Those sort of games, open-world games like that, are those games that are very attractive to me. For example, Skyrim, a few years ago, I completely, played the crap out of that. And this game looks no different. Well, obviously it does. It's 4 years on since Skyrim. That was 2011. But there are a lot of things in that trailer that look incredibly impressive, such as the world it's been said somewhere that the world is about 35 times the size of the world of Witcher 2. And with the level of detail that we've seen in the trailer, that looks pretty cool to me.
The overworld will most likely be 20 to 25% larger than the map of Skyrim, and it just puts a completely new benchmark when it comes to seamless exploration.
To be honest, I've never actually played a Witcher game. This is the first one that's caught my attention, and from this I've been looking back at the previous 2 Witcher games, and I've bought Witcher 2 and I plan to play it at some point. So what would a sort of, a Witcher, a noob to the Witcher series, if you will, what would they expect from Witcher 3?
I think an evolution of basically the greatest elements within the Witcher franchise, and that is first and foremost the novel-based storyline. As most people are aware, the 2 first Witcher games were rather linear, but you were choosing your own path in terms of decision making, and that is probably the most important mechanic to this game. You are creating an impact on the world you are within, which is a rather unique mechanic. In instance, The Witcher 3, for instance, will have 36 different endings depending on the choices you make throughout your adventure.
Oh yeah, like we saw during that gameplay trailer, there was a scene in the pub where it's stressed that you have the power to basically play your character the way you want him to be played, so you can act the way you want to act in certain situations. You don't seem to be forced into playing a character you don't really want to play, and like for the sake of the story, which I think is quite cool. We have been seeing more and more this sort of gameplay. For example, a lot of big games at the moment are having multiple endings depending on what you do, because it does give power to the players, and it is an effective way of writing a game because it does involve you more in the storyline. For example, Far Cry 3 had 2 separate endings. I mean, 2's nowhere near 36 on the scale of Witcher 3, but it was still a little thing that the players got. They got a little bit of control over which way they wanted the story to go at the end of the game. And this is something I personally would like to see more and more in games. Whether it would apply well to the Zelda franchise is another discussion, because Zelda games are very, well, the plot of them is linear. I'm not necessarily saying the gameplay of all Zelda games is linear, but they do have a structured story to most of them, and whether the player's decisions, like having effects on a large scale, would work in a Zelda game is debatable.
I would actually compare this more to the mechanic you had in Star Fox 64, where depending on what you did in the level determined on what path you took.
Oh yeah, you could complete the level with a mission complete, or accomplish the level with the secret ending to the level, and that allows you to take completely different paths through the Lilith system. And that was something I thought was awesome as a kid. so the decision making again really does add something small to a game that really enhances the experience.
Yeah, and what is specific about Witcher 3 is that it doesn't just affect the main story, the main storyline, it also affects the side quests, which, according to both the developers and the people that have been playing the demos of the game up to 6 hours, say that the side quests are involving with several different outcomes, and they depend on your decisions. And since each side quest has its own story, then people also the reactions will depend on how you will determine what decision you will take. The best example, which was illustrated by one of the developers in CD Projekt Red, was where you have a side quest where there's a specific object that has been stolen, and your mission is to find the object and catch the thief. To the thief, it turns out that he is grieving. He's grieving for all what he has done, and is ready to take the punishment that he will get. So in the ending of the side quest, you have the choice. Either do nothing, just take your prize, your bounty, or interfere and halt or stop the execution. That will be the types of side quests you will see in the game. It won't be just fetch quests, it will be much more involving quests where you will actually be determining a person's or NPC's life, which could again result in some other events later in the game.
Obviously, the game that Witcher 3 is being constantly compared to is The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, because that was sort of the last sort of massive, massive epic fantasy, sort of the one that got the media, got so much media attention and all that. And while Skyrim is a very sort of open game, you can do one. The main plotline is pretty much linear. You can't really change that much with your actions. I mean, you can do it in different ways. You can use different ways of defeating enemies and stuff. You could use magic if you wanted to, or you could use, two-handed or one-handed or whatever you wanted. But it doesn't matter really what you did along the way to the final goal. It doesn't really change. There's one ending to Skyrim for the main quest.
Yeah, that's where we see the main difference between Witcher 3 and Skyrim. Since Witcher 3 will have enormous level of replay value, both in terms of its difficulty settings, where you will be able to change also in-game between easy, normal, hard and dark mode, similar to how you could swap between normal mode and hero mode in Wind Waker HD.
Yeah, that's something I quite like the sound of, because sort of second quests and additional game modes or difficulties or something to play through, and additional endings in this case to play through after the game's done, really sort of makes me more willing to pay full price for a game, because you're not going to play it once and be like, I'm done.
Yeah, we will see what the reception for Witcher 3 will be, but we should maybe talk more about the overworld, since we saw several of the different provinces within this gameplay trailer, and it's estimated that the overworld will be 20 to 25% larger than the one found in Skyrim. It will be completely seamless with no loading times. It will have 6 drastically different and vast provinces filled to the brim with villages and towns, and have 2 main hub cities, Novigrad and Oxenfurt.
Comparing this to Zelda Wii U, we don't know what the size of Zelda Wii U's map will be. There have been estimates, but we've only seen that short footage of Aonuma and Miyamoto controlling the map with a gamepad. And we know roughly one distance from Link to a waypoint, but then there's only estimates of sort of applying that to the whole scale of the map. And I personally don't feel that a game has to have an incredibly large map to be a good game, but in a game like Witcher 3 I think it certainly does help, because the world is massive, and Witcher 3 is certainly trying to be trying to feel as realistic as it can, and make you feel like you are in a world rather than playing a game.
The main example of this is probably the city of Novigrad, which will have several hundreds, if not thousands, of NPCs. And according to the developers, the city's NPCs will all be unique, no clones, and all will have different types of reaction, which will give a completely new sense of realism to towns and villages present in video game. It has already been confirmed that the main city in the game, Novigrad, will be the largest medieval city ever implemented in a video game. That is probably the area where I will spend most time within the game. Though all buildings in Novigrad will not be accessible, a huge amount of them, and a majority of them, will be accessible, and the city is huge. It has 4 different boroughs. It is just not comparable to anything we have seen in a video game prior. You could probably even say that, especially in medieval fantasies, we have not seen any equivalent to Novigrad.
Yeah, and alongside the 2 confirmed large cities, there are apparently 25-ish villages, some of them comparable to Flotsam in size, but this, I think, is a cool addition to the game because we've got a massive world, and I think having villages, small villages dotted around the world will both make the world feel more realistic and give the player something that will break up long journeys. Because if the player can go from point A to point B, but also stop at 3 or 4 villages on his way if he wants to stock up on supplies, maybe get better weapons, something like that. That's something that's always been a cool thing to do in fantasy open world games. For example, Skyrim did have a few villages dotted around, not particularly many, but they did help break up the big space between the 7 or 8 major cities or towns that were dotted around Skyrim.
And speaking about villages, in the trailer we heard that getting rid of monsters which have been infesting a specific village will make the area available for settlement for the different NPCs. So you will create new communities, new urban environments as the story progresses.
My only concern with all these villages stuff is that they actually feel like communities, and CD Projekt Red aren't adding so many of these small villages that they will all feel a little bland or copied and pasted or something. I hope that each one has a real sense of community in it, so you can actually feel like this is a group of people living in a world, and therefore saving them or creating a new community would feel that much more rewarding.
What has been confirmed, and this is not from the developers, it's from the people that have actually been playing the last build in March. They said that the world never felt empty and all NPCs act differently. As we already mentioned, there will be no clone. And one other thing they also noted was that taking out an area filled with gangs and bandits will mean that the gang has been taken out for good. So they won't just reappear like you have seen in other games. It will be like in real life. If you take out one guy and kill him, he will not reappear.
That's cool, because you could, there would be a sense of finality of killing someone. You'd have to actually decide whether or not to kill someone, because that gang or that group of people, if you killed them, would never reappear in the game. So it would make your actions seem more important in the world, as it would have a lasting effect on the world around you.
Correct, and that way some side quests will not be available later in the game since you made that specific decision, which makes that NPC is either gone or just dead. And that creates a lot of possibilities.
And again adds more replay value to the game.
Correct. So I think we could just go over to the combat mechanics, and some have said that it could be comparable to the ones found in Dark Souls, but be more dynamic, and the skirmishes will be more fluent and intuitive. And this makes me really hyped and triggered for trying out the different combat elements within this game.
Yeah, definitely. And it says comparable to the one in Dark Souls. I hope it's not as difficult as Dark Souls. I hope you can... actually, the dark setting, because there's different difficulty settings, I hope that they do actually add a mode comparable to the difficulty of some games like Dark Souls, to give players, like, real serious gamers a proper challenge. But then it is nice to have a difficulty scale, so you don't feel defeated 10 minutes into the game.
The combat system will also depend heavily on modifications and upgrade options, such as web upgrades in terms of sword skills or technique, the swords, armors, and your alchemy skills. And
linked with combat, it's been said that monsters in the world will change their behavior and tactics depending on stuff like the time of day you fight them or the terrain them on. And this is a pretty cool addition, to be honest, because you'll have to actually think about where and when you're going to pick your fights to better advantage you. And stuff like this with monsters adapting is something that I've always been interested in with video games. Like,
one thing about this game, which I believe will change the RPG genre, and I would say the benchmark for third-person adventure games, and then including Zelda Wii U, will be the possibilities to have both meaningful land portions and sea sections. since it appeared that in Witcher 3 there's a lot of stuff that is happening on the water and in the sea portions as well, since you can ride your horse, Roach, have horseback combat on it, but you also have underwater combat. You have mermaids, you have some other sea-based monsters, and you have your own sailboat at your disposition to sail across the sea, and that's specifically to the Skellige Islands.
And I hope Witcher 3 displays some sort of character like this. I'm not really sure how to put it into words. Perhaps it is the story, perhaps it's the art style, and both of those things look to be part of what The Witcher 3 is going to focus on. So we've just got to wait for release really to see how this game will compare with, you know, games in the past and how it will affect games in the future.
Yeah, I think that Witcher 3 will include some humoristic and goofy parts, such as we saw in the trailer, the alcoholic in the pub that says, "Welcome, traveler, sit down and drink with me, cocksucker."
Yeah, and there's the vampire who he wakes up and he says, "Is it whatever this time yet?" And they say no, and he goes, "Well, fuck off."
Anyways, Witcher 3 will be released in a month's time from now, or actually a little bit less than a month from now. And in addition to the game, we will get 16 free downloadable DLCs, with the first 2 coming out on May 19th. And these will be followed by 2 new DLCs each following week. On top of those 16 free downloadable DLCs, 2 expansion passes for $25 for both will give 30 hours of additional content to the game. Those 2 expansion passes are Heart of Stone, which will consist of approximately 10 hours of gameplay. It will be launched this fall in October. And then we have the more interesting expansion pass, the Blood and Wine, which will add 20 hours of the additional content and a completely new province to Song. And this season pass is planned to be released in the first quarter of 2016. I think we will drop it there. I hope you enjoyed this news discussion video and want to like, share, comment on this video, and most importantly, subscribe to our 2 channels. And I also highly recommend you check out Zeltik's channel for basically the second part of this video, where we continue the discussion about delays, rushes and DLCs within the video game industry. So until the next video, this has been the Commonwealth Realm, and I will see you guys soon.